Good morning, aviators. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I've come across what many people are saying is one of the greatest tutorials ever put out there by a DCS user. This is a Gunthrek Flight Academy um, DCS campaign that is learning the FA-18 Hornet. Now I know how to fly the FA-18, probably not as well as some of the other pilots out there, but I kind of want to go over this because I've heard such great things about it. I want to see if it truly is better than the DCS Eagle Dynamics provided tutorials, and just put that out on the channel for you to see, and maybe you could download it yourself. It is free to download. I'll put a link to it in the description. Yeah, we'll jump right in. So the basic situation, we'll jump in. This is training 1 of 30. It's in 4 separate blocks. We're in block 1 right now, mission 1 of block 1. And all this is cold start and shutdown. I know how to do this, but let's see how this tutorial plays out compared to Eagle Dynamics.
Welcome to the Field Flight School for the FA-18 Hornet.
I already like the audio
The
better.
goal of this course is to take you from zero experience all the way up to becoming a competent pilot in the field. Each lesson will build on what you learned in all previous lessons, so be sure to take your time and master the skills showcased during each flight, as it will generally be assumed that you know how to do those things on your own once a topic has been covered. Before we can do any of that, however, we need to get this Hornet relocated to Vatsiani, which is located near the ground attack training area we've set up for the course. The aircraft is on loan from the Stennis and they dropped it off here last night, so it's up to us to get it there. Unfortunately, Vatsiani has been closed to traffic for non-essential personnel until this evening. It would be a shame to waste a training day completely, so let's go over the cold start and shutdown procedures for the Hornet, then you can practice on your own to get familiar with the procedure so we can get a quick start for our flight tomorrow. You should have gone through the official cold start procedure during your basic flight training, but that process is a bit long-winded for my taste. I'm going to show you a down and dirty quick start procedure to get us into the air as quickly as possible. To get started, look down at the panel to your right, check that both the generator switches are on, then switch the battery to on by right-clicking it once. It's going to get pretty loud once we start turning things on, so let's go ahead and close the canopy. On the right side once the canopy is fully seated, look to the left-hand panel by your leg and look for the APU switch near the throttle. The auxiliary power unit is a small onboard generator that helps spool up the engines to get them running. Go ahead and switch that on now with a right click, and the APU will begin starting up.
I already liked how it sequences through when you
We
click
can't
things.
really do anything with the engines until the APU is fully powered on and the light next to the switch is green, so we'll take care of a few other things while that spools up. We're going to need oxygen up there in the clouds, so look back to the aft end of the left panel and switch on the O-box with a right click. Moving up to the front of the left panel, verify that the anti-skid switch is set to on, and the carrier bypass switch is set to field. If the carrier bypass switch won't stay on field, ignore it for now.
Huh, that's interesting.
Just
Yeah,
to the
it
right
usually
of
does.
that, set the flaps switch to half. Moving aft down the panel, set the lights master and position lights knobs to 100% by holding down the left mouse button over them and dragging the mouse straight up until the knob stops moving. For this flight we won't really need lighting, but it's a good idea to be in the habit of checking them and adjusting them appropriately for mission conditions. The APU should be ready to go about now, so verify that the light next to the switch is green and then toggle the nearby engine crank switch to right by right-clicking it.
Okay.
Set the right throttle to idle by pressing the appropriate keybind, R Shift plus Home. You would normally wait until the engine RPM was at 30% to do this, but this is a quick start procedure and we need to get going. After the throttle is set to idle, set the left MDI in the upper center panel to day by right-clicking it twice.
Technically, I think that number is supposed to be 20 to 25, but light off. There's rollback. That's what I wait for before switching
Now
this.
set the right MDI to day in the same way. The lower middle display is called the AMP. Just above and to the left of the AMPCD brightness knob is the HUD brightness knob. Turn it up to 100%. Find the bleed air switch on the right-hand panel. This switch is separated into two parts, a push button on the top and a rotating switch on the bottom. Rotate the bottom switch clockwise with right clicks until it comes all the way back around to norm.
Technically, that wouldn't be required unless you did the fire test.
After the bleed air switch, find the INS switch and set it to GND with two right clicks. There's not much else we can do until the right engine is finished spooling up, so once the MDI screens are turned on, let's get them set up for takeoff. On the left MDI, press the menu button until the text above it reads SUPT. Now press the push button for CHKLST to bring up the checklist page. Now press the menu push button for the right MDI and press the push button next to FCS. The AMPCD should have a countdown in the bottom third of the display as the navigation system completes its alignment process.
Yes.
If the map overlay has appeared and you can't read the text, press PB3 on the left side of the screen until it disappears. The standard alignment process can take quite a while, so rather than waiting for that, we're going to speed things along by using the previously stored heading from the last flight. By this point, the right engine should be at about 60% RPM.
Oh, that's pretty quick.
Let's crank the left engine with the engine crank switch.
Yes, that's... I think I would monitor in real life the engine until it spools down, but I guess, yeah, that's a quick flow. From cranking it, immediately put the throttle up, click, click, scroll, reset, and then I could buy that.
Set the left throttle to idle by pressing the appropriate keybind, Alt plus Home. Just to the left of that, hold down the T/O trim button for at least 3 seconds. Look back up at the MDI screens and take a look at the FCS page on the right-hand display. Verify takeoff trim has been correctly set by checking for 12s and 30s on the FCS page on the right MDI and confirming that there are values of 12 for the LEF and stab, and values of 30 for the TEF, AIL, and RUD.
Okay, so I'm going a little bit slower so you guys are able to follow along with me. For anyone who's never flown the Hornet, I think this would be good to watch the full thing. So always looking at the leading edge flaps, trailing edge flaps, the stabilators, and the stabulator and the aileron rudder.
Go back to the lower right switch panel and find the radar switch. The radar won't actually start sending out radiation until we're in the air, so there's no danger to anyone on the ground by turning it on now. Switch the radar to OPR with 2 right clicks. The FLIR is an onboard system that can be connected to an optional targeting pod that provides guidance for various weapon systems on the Hornet. It takes a while to warm up, so let's get in the habit of turning the system on during startup so we don't end up with it being unavailable at some critical moment. The switch is located just forward of the radar switch, so go ahead and toggle it to on with 2 right clicks. For night flights, you'll need to adjust cockpit lighting as desired, so have a look at the various knobs just to get familiar with them, but we won't need them for this flight. The wings should already be unfolded, but you should always check this before taking off. Once all that's done, go ahead and arm the ejection seat using the lever on the right side. The Hornet has a physical countermeasure system in the form of chaff and flares that helps to avoid being hit by missiles, but we have to turn the system on before we can use them. At the very bottom of the center console behind the stick, find the dispenser switch.
If the stick
If
is
the
up,
flight
just click
stick
the bottom
is in
there.
the way of your view, you can right-click the base to hide it.
Or left click.
Go
doesn't
ahead
matter.
and turn the dispenser to on with a single right click. In addition to the physical countermeasure system, we're also equipped with an electronic jamming countermeasure. The switch for it is located just to the right of the dispenser. Set the ECM switch to receive with 3 right clicks. Perhaps the most important system is the radar warning receiver, which provides information on other aircraft, and more importantly missiles, which may be targeting us with their radar. There is a small row of difficult-to-see buttons just below the AMPCD display
It's
that
the one with the
controls the
lettering.
RW. Now let's turn on our navigation radios. TACAN is a radio navigation tool that allows you to home in on a specific radio source and use it to get where you're going. It includes several functions that allow you to do some pretty advanced navigation techniques, but we'll cover those in a later lesson. Still, it's a good habit to go ahead and enter the destination TACAN frequency prior to takeoff, if your destination has one, so you don't have to do it later while in the air. On the UFC, press the TCN button so we can set up our TACAN frequency. Using the numbered push buttons on the UFC, enter the TACAN code for Vatsiani, 22, then verify that there are two. Although we've entered the information, the TACAN won't be active until we turn it on. The Instrument Landing System, or ILS, is a radio tool that allows us to get precise landing information so we can approach the carrier in less than ideal conditions. The system only works with aircraft carriers, however, so we won't be able to practice with it until we relocate to the Stennis. Still, let's start forming good habits now by setting up the frequency for it. Since Vatsiani has no, enter 11 using the number keys on the UFC, then press the ENT button. As with the TACAN, hold down the OFF button on the UFC until the word ON appears in the display. The Hornet contains software that helps you classify targets as friendly or hostile, known as the IFF. It's another system we have to turn on, so press the IFF button to select it. Hold down the OFF button on the UFC and next up is the data link, which is an onboard communication system that relays radar information from other sources to give you better situational awareness. Press the D/L button and hold down the OFF button until you see the magic word. You would normally set up your radio frequencies at this point, but that is covered in the next lesson, so we'll skip that for now. Just remember to do it when you're on your own. Verify that the NWS appears on the HUD, indicating that your nose wheel steering is on.
Yes.
If it isn't, use the appropriate keybind to activate it. Now we wait for the quality indicator on the AMPCD to read 0.5 with a big OK next to it.
Right there.
If the map overlay has appeared and you can't read the text anymore, simply press PB3 on the left side of the screen until it disappears.
He's talking about this one.
The IFA setting for the INS will use GPS rather than onboard systems as the primary means of navigation, which is far more accurate. Once the quality is OK, turn the INS switch from GND to IFA with 2 right clicks. Verify that the APU has turned off, then release the parking brake by left-clicking on it.
APU's off, left click.
And that's it. Though for this, turn all the lights off by holding down the left mouse button on each one and dragging them down until they stop moving. Then set the parking brake by left-clicking on it and then pulling it back with the mouse wheel.
Okay, so we're turning off all of these, it sounds like. And then parking brake.
Turn the OBOGs off by left-clicking it.
So we're shutting down now.
Left-click the INS switch until it's set to off. Left-click the radar switch until it's set to off. Turn the radios off by holding down the left mouse button on each one and pulling it down until the display below it turns off. Turn off the TACAN by pressing the TCN button, then holding the on-off button until it shuts off. Open up the canopy by either holding down the right-click button on the switch or pressing the appropriate keybind, Ctrl+C. Disengage the nose wheel steering, NWS, by using the appropriate keybind, then set the flap switch to full by left-clicking on it once.
Alright, nose wheel steering off.
Turn off the left engine by using the appropriate keybind, Alt+End. Then turn off all displays by reversing the procedures we used to turn them on.
Off. Off. Off.
Turn off the right engine by using the appropriate keybind, Shift+End. Now turn off the battery to complete the shutdown by left-clicking on it once.
Normally you would wait for it to spool down, but for the sake of the lesson.
And that completes the shutdown procedure. We're done for now, but you're free to spend some time practicing the startup and shutdown procedures so you can get them down for a quick startup for our flight this evening. You can also access the practice session for this from the lessons menu. Report back here at 2000 so we can get over to Vatsiani by the time they reopen and get the aircraft put away for the night.
Okay, well, I think that does a really good job of explaining what you need to turn on. The flow is a little weird than what I'm traditionally used to, but I think it's good and it's a good teacher, and supposedly we can just practice with it here, and there's a lesson plan. But so doing what he did, um, just kind of summarized quickly. So battery, APU, O-bogs, gonna get the lights, anti-skid, full bypass, half flaps. That's what he did before turning on the APU. APU's green, start switch right, and then shift home. I wouldn't do this, and he says go ahead and turn all the screens on. And that includes comms in this case. It lights off automatically. So yeah, you can't even turn on the screens until the engine spools down. I guess he also had to close the canopy, but that's fine.
Roll left, roll left. Flight controls.
Then he said ground.
Flight controls.
He also had us click store heading. Had us turn on the dispensers. ECM, RWR. Had us go to the checklist page here. FCS. Had us start the left engine and go immediately out of detent. Not sure if I would do that, but then we go rudder trim hold, FCS reset hold. Yeah, now we can do the carrier fuel bypass. Radar operational. And some other stuff we could do here. Let's see, he had us do TACAN on, IFF 40 on, data link on. What else turn the beacon on, yes. That shut down. Now we would just be waiting for our INS to line, and normally at this point what I do is I set the standby attitude indicator, set the radar altimeter to whatever's relevant. Let's say 200 feet there. Well, we didn't do the bleed air test, but we do that as well. Waiting for that INS alignment quality to come down. Now, some other things I would recommend to do during this time. Go to bit test, FCS go. If you push Y, FCS bit test is on. Click bit test, it would run through its automatic. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. FCS, and it goes through its test. All right, quality's okay. Go to IFA or nav, depending on when your mission's set. APU's turned off. Okay. And then to shut it down, according to him, and this is right, now I gotta remember because his flow is so different than mine. Okay, I think it was O-bogs, INS, radar, TACAN, data link, IFF. Okay, I think that's the flow he did, and then he capes that. Turn the radar altimeter off. He didn't cover this, but turn off your RWR, turn off your ECM, turn off your dispensers, turn off, we'll do the left engine first,
Flight controls.
turn off your
Flight
lights,
controls.
turn off all the screens and displays. Flaps to full. Yes, he did set that before. Shutting down the left engine. Lights are off now. And shut down the right engine. And then he immediately set battery switch off. Yeah, okay, I could buy that. I think it's a good learning mission for quickly starting all the systems. Well, we'll jump into the next one shortly, but if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, follow for more. And if you want to learn the Hornet, I think this will shape up to be a good training campaign. And as always, I'll see you next time.